Hello there, this is Nawaz Nehal and welcome to Rajiv Gandhi IAS Academy Daily News Analysis. And today I will be analyzing daily news for 31st December. And moving on with the first news. The first news is about Odisha, and the Odisha government and the Odisha Forest and Environment Department has completed its first ever radio tagging of Indian pangolin. So as we all know, pangolin is very in there is this Indian pangolin which is indigenous to India, and this was an attempt to standardize the rehabilitation protocol for the animal in the state. And a radio tagged Indian pangolin was released into the wild in Nandan Wildlife Sanctuary. So these two things became important. First one is pangolin, and second one is the Nandan Wildlife Sanctuary. And also this is a zoological park which is known as NCP. So this was in the news. And as far as Nandan is concerned, it is the only conservation breeding center for Indian pangolins in the whole world. So this wildlife sanctuary or zoological park became very important when it comes to pangolin. And we all know in 2021 prelim a question was asked in which an option was there regarding pangolin. So we have to give our detail, not just not that much depth, but we have to know something about pangolin because this option was there in the prelims. So moving on with the news. So first we have to know where this Nandan Zoological Park is. So it is close to Cuttack and Bhubaneswar in Odisha, and there it literally means the Garden of Heaven. Nandan is known as Garden of Heaven. So if a question is asked that which of the national park is known as Garden of Heaven, so we can say that Nandan is that. And unlike other zoos in the country, Nandan is built right inside the forest. So this is inside a forest. So Nandan is also a forest and a zoological park. And also it is among the 6 participating zoo for conservation breeding of white backed vulture white backed vulture. So we can see all of these kind of things are important when it comes to Nandan. So, and there are some few unique features of Nandan Zoological Park. And first one we have already discussed, that it is the only center which is the breeding ground of Indian pangolin, and also it is the first zoo in the world to breed white tiger and melanistic tiger. This is white tiger, and this one here is melanistic tiger. So it is the first zoo in the world to breed white tiger and melanistic tiger, and only zoological park in India to become an institutional member of World Association of Zoos and Aquarium, that is WAZA is there. So it is the only zoological park in India to become its member, and it is also a breeding ground for gharials, and it is also a breeding ground for gharials also. And it is the first zoo in India where endangered rattle was born in captivity. So rattle was born in captivity. So these kind of things are important when it comes to Nandan Zoological Park, and it is also the second largest Henry for open build stocks. So also open build stocks is also there. So we can see that it is known as Garden of Heaven. It's also a forest reserve and famous for white backed vulture and white tiger, melanistic tiger, and is a part of Vaza and breeding ground for gharial and also for rattles and also for open build stocks. So stocks. So these are the important thing when it's come to Nandan Zoological Park. And moving on with pangolin in India. So there are total about 8 species of pangolin, and only two are found in India. That first one is Indian pangolin, and second one is Chinese pangolin. So this is a figure of an Indian pangolin. So in Indian pangolin, so an Indian pangolin is covered about with 11 or 13 rows of scales on the back, and a terminal scale is also present on the lower side, this side. And these kind of features are absent in Chinese pangolin. and its habitat for Indian pangolin, the habitat is widely distributed except the arid region, like the region in some parts of Maharashtra and mainly the parts of Rajasthan, and also the high Himalayas. In this area, it is not found. In high Himalaya, it is not found. In arid region, it is not found. And this and also in the high region of northeast, it is also not found. So these were the reason where it is not found. And Indian pangolin is found also in our neighboring country like Bangladesh, like Pakistan, like Nepal, and similarly Sri Lanka. So in all these countries, Indian pangolin is found. And as far as Chinese pangolin are concerned, Chinese pangolin is found in Himalayan foothills. It is found in Himalayan foothills. So as we are expecting, Himalayan foothills will cover like eastern Nepal. It will cover eastern Nepal, and it will also cover Bhutan, and it will cover North Indian states, northern state, and similarly it will also cover northeastern state, the high grounds of North Indian state. And also there are many threats to pangolin because it's one of a rare animals. So main threat is hunting and poaching. So hunting and poaching are the main threats for pangolin. And also it is used for local consumption use, and it can be used for medicine, especially traditional medicine. And also its meat is also used in international market. So see, when COVID-19 happened, this pangolin was one of the major chains between bat and human. So because pangolin meat were eaten by Chinese people, and we all know in the Wuhan market, Wuhan open animal market. So pangolin was the main connection between bats and human when it comes to COVID-19, when the transfer of virus happens through pangolin. Not mainly through pangolin, but it was also a part of that food chain. So protection status, as far as protection status is concerned, in IUCN list, in Indian pangolin is in endangered. And as far as Chinese pangolin is concerned, it is critically endangered. And both this Indian pangolin and Chinese pangolin come in the schedule 1 of the part 1 of Wildlife Act 1972. Okay, Wildlife Act 1972. So this is all about pangolin. As far as pangolin are concerned, first there are different habitats and there are different types of pangolin. Second, their threats are there, and then the protection status. So as far as UPSC is concerned, this much knowledge is suffice when it comes to pangolin. So moving on with the next news. So it is about that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has put off his UAE visit, which was about to happen, and this is due to the, as we all know, Omicron variant of coronavirus is very much in rise. So due to the current spike in Omicron cases, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has put off his visit to Abu Dhabi and Dubai also, which was due to happen in next week. And when India and the UAE was planning this, the highlight of Mr. Modi's UAE visit was to have been the signing of a partial FTA, that is foreign trade agreement, was to be signed after formal talks which was going on from September. So since September these talks were going on. So between our commerce and industry minister Piyush Goyal and the UAE minister of foreign trade, this FTA, these talks were happening. And also trade representation on both sides would continue to work on concluding a larger comprehensive economic partnership agreement, that is CEPA, comprehensive economic partnership agreement, which is about to be worked out between different trade representative of UAE and India. So, and that would include more investment protection measures as well as the special facilities for Indian laborers also. Indian laborers and expatriates by March 22. So this will start benefiting us from March 2022. So moving on with the rest of the news. So as we all know that UAE is one of the key is in one of the key strategic location of the world, because see here it is Saudi Arabia, and here this whole part, as we are seeing, this whole colored part is UAE, this is Oman, and this is Strait of Hormuz, and this is Persian Gulf going right across the uh, Iran and Iraq portion. So this is and also this is Gulf of Oman. So strategically, UAE, here we can see UAE in world map. So strategically, it is a very important location when it's come to Arab and whole Middle East and India relationship. So India and UAE relationship goes far back, and the relationship flourished after the accession of his honorary Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. This was the name of the ruler. These names are not much important, but as we are also discussing the recent background, so he was the ruler of Abu Dhabi in 1966. So during his regime, the relationship between India and UAE increases, and subsequently the creation of UAE Federation was done in 1971, and all these small parts like Abu Dhabi and Dubai and all these small island of close to that came to form a United Arab Emirate, and Sharjah was also a part of that. So all this was the thing. This was the historical aspect of the India and UAE relationship. Similarly, there are political relationship. In August 2019, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was given the Zayed Medal, which is the highest civilian award for consolidating the long standing friendship and joint strategic cooperation between the two nations. So, PM was given the highest civilian award, and also Indian Prime Minister visit to UAE in August 2015 marked the beginning of a new and comprehensive strategic partnership. In August itself, in 2015, also there was this visit by our Prime Minister to UAE, and also the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi visited India in February 2016 and had wide ranging discussion as bilateral, regional, and multilateral issues of mutual interest. Similarly, there is this commercial relation between India and UAE also, because India UAE trade comes around $59 billion, and that is India and UAE relationship economically, and India's third largest trading partner for the year 2019-20. For the year 2019-20, in UAE was India's third largest trading partner, and UAE is the second largest exporter. This was for trading partner, and UAE was the second largest trading export destination was UAE, and with an amount of about $29 billion exports happening with the UAE. And also for the UAE, India is this India's major export food items like food items, machinery, gems, jewelry, textile, engineering and machinery products, chemical etc. All are major exports from Dubai, and major imports are crude oil, petroleum, and petroleum products, precious metal, mineral, chemical, wood, and wood products. These are the major imports from India to UAE. From UAE to India, and the export are, as we all know, the food items and all that. And moving on with the news, so we have also shared some cultural relation with the UAE, because the two nations share historical ties and have maintained regular cultural exchange. And also there was this cultural agreement signed between both of them in 1975. So since 1975, Both embassy continue to organize various cultural activities on their own as well as collaborating with other cultural organization. And also when UAE is concerned, there is this whole Muslim diaspora or Islamic diaspora of Indian Muslim and also Malayali diaspora living in Dubai. So this kind of Indian Muslim diaspora and Malayali diaspora are there, and UAE is home to the Indian expatriate community. For more than 2.6 million Indians are living there, and the largest community in the UAE is from India, and it has played a major role in the economic development of UAE. And recently, India has asked the member of Gulf Cooperation Council, that is GCC, which also includes AE, to facilitate the return of Indians who want to resume their work after COVID 19. So during COVID 19 also, uh, our relationship with UAE grew stronger. So there are some recent development when it comes to UAE relationship. So first one is will be around March 2019, and in this the 46th session of Council of Foreign Minister happened on the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, that is OIC. Organization of Islamic Cooperation was held in Abu Dhabi. So India was also a part of this, and at that moment the foreign minister of India took part of this, and India was invited as a guest of honor. And the UAE hosted the event and had strongly defended the decision to invite India, because Pakistan was in objection to that decision, but UAE strongly objected that and invited India. And also in February 2020, the UAE issued an operating license of the Arab world first nuclear power plant, paving the way for start production in 2020. So also India, nuclear capabilities of India, or we can say the nuclear minds of India, are being utilized by UAE. So we have relationship in nuclear field also. And also the UAE Mars mission, also in UAE Mars mission also, it was launched in July 2020, and the UAE launched a Mars probe named Amal. So Amal was launched from Japan, marking the Arab first interplanetary mission. And we can see that UAE is also growing in interplanetary skills. And also in September 2020, there was this important accord that was signed in uh, known as Abraham Accord. So Abraham Accord was signed in September 2020 with Israel and Bahrain, Israel and Bahrain, which is the first Arab-Israel peace deal in about 26 years. So these are the recent developments which is happening in UAE. So OIC is there, and UAE nuclear capability is there. Mars mission known as Amal is there, and also this Abraham Accord is there. So these are the recent developments in UAE, and our what we can say that our relationship with UAE is like we have historical relation, political relation, commercial, and also cultural relation, and obviously that the diasporic relation we have that. So moving on with the next news. So the in the next news, the state have been said asked the center to extend the GST compensation for 5 more years, and several states including Chhattisgarh, Kerala, Delhi, and West Bengal press for continuation of GST. And also the demand was met by the state finance minister at pre-budget consultation. So before passing out the budget, because the next budget will be presented in around March, so only 2 or 3 months are there. So before that, a pre-budget consultation happened between the states and the union finance minister. So in that they said that they demand for a GST compensation to be increased by 5 years, and many states also demanded raising the share of union government in centrally sponsored scheme. And currently the share is about 60 to 40, while others at 75 to 25 ratio. But they are asking to increase this share in centrally sponsored scheme. And also GST compensation to the state for revenue shortfall resulting from resubmission of local taxes will end in June this year. So when in 2017 it started, a 5 year of window was given for compensation. So that will end in June. So moving on with the news. So so what is GST compensation? So before GST was announced in 2017, states had the power to levy some indirect taxes on economic activity. So there was this provision of indirect taxes on economic activity. Therefore, after GST regime was introduced in 2017, the center promised some guaranteed compensation to the state for the first 5 years for the revenue they lost after the shift from this indirect tax to this GST. So, for making this loss, this direct this compensation was announced, and the compensation is calculated at a growth rate of 14%, keeping 2015-16 as the base year, and by levying compensation cess on luxury goods. So there was this compensation cess also on luxury goods, so that union can provide compensation, GST compensation to states. And there is this little background of this issue also. So the total GST revenue shortfall for year 2020-21 is estimated to about 3 lakhs crore. That this is the shortfall between state and the center. The compensation says collection for this fiscal is estimated at 65,000 crore. So the compensation says is 65,000 crore, and the fiscal deficit, if is, then we can similarly see there is this fiscal deficit or compensation deficit of about 2.35 lakh crore already. And the center distinguished the GST fall into two part. First, the the shortfall is due to the GST implementation. First shortfall is due to the GST implementation, and the second shortfall is due to the COVID-19 impact, which was termed as an act of God. We all know it was a famous term, and it was also said by our finance minister Nirmala Sitaram that this is an act of God. And the GST Compensation Act 2017 had not any kind of act of God clause in it, and thus did not have any mechanism to deal with this kind of thing. And thus the center had earlier refused to compensate GST shortfall arising due to COVID-19 to the state. But however, state urged that center cannot similarly absolve of its responsibility to make up for GST shortfall. So center said that they cannot similarly say that due to this COVID-19 this is act of God, so we cannot provide GST shortfall. So center cannot go like this. So how did center try to solve this compensation deficit? So of the 2.35 lakh crore compensation shortfall, the rupees 1.1 lakh crore has been estimated as a shortfall on account of GST implementation. So 1.1 lakh crore is due to GST implementation, and the rest 1.25 lakh crore is due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So in August, after GST Council meet, the center gave two options to the state. So in August, they give first option is to borrow money, borrow about 1.10 lakh crore for a special window facilitated by RBI. Okay, 1.1 lakh crore facilitated by RBI at government securities linked interest rate, and the amount can be repaid after 5 years. So this amount can be repaid after 5 years ending in 2020. Okay, and the second option they give was to borrow the entire amount of 2.35 lakh crore from the market facility facilitated by RBI. In this case, the burden of repayment is on states. So burden is on states, and the union government will provide a relaxation of 0.5% in states borrowing limit under the FRBM Act. So this was the thing. These two options were provided to the states, and states will have to bear the cost of borrowing in two cases, but at reasonable interest rates. States has specifically asked the center to borrow and pay the compensation shortfall to them. So they say that okay, we will borrow, but you have to give the compensation which is shortfall. So this happened across August 2021. So there was this shortfall, and again this and as we have already discussed, around June 2022, that 5 years of that GST compensation is going to end. So states are again saying that still their demands are not met and there is still this deficit. So this GST compensation should be continued for another 5 years. So this was the issue. And moving on with the next news is not that much of news, but that's just a statement, because there was this rule by the ruling by Supreme Court of India regarding that bank must pay back customers their money on demand. So whenever a customer is asking for money, bank have to pay it, and banks have a super added obligation to pay back customer with their money on demand with the agreed rate of interest. So whatever the interest rate is agreed, for example, if 5% interest rate is given, that they have to give back the amount at 5%. So the bank cannot later change the percentage 4%. It have to give at the earlier discussed 5% only. And also the banker uh, is one who receive money to be drawn out again when the owner has occasion for it. Okay, so this was the thing. And this was the Chief Justice NV Ramanna was in bench, and Justice Surya Kant was in bench, and Hima Kohli. They were prominent judges of Supreme Court, and they noted that the relationship between the bank with his customer is that of a debitor and creditor, and there is nothing like trust or something like that. Just a debitor and creditor. One is debiting the money and other is crediting the money. Similarly, this is the relationship. And also it is said that until it was called upon to pay it, the bank is entitled to utilize the money in any manner for earning profit. So this is a important clause in that judgment, that bank can utilize that money in any way. Suppose if someone is giving crediting 10 crores to bank, so bank can revolve this money around to make more money. S- but if that man is asking back is 10 crore, he have bank have to give that 10 crore at the fixed interest rate which it promised the consumer to give. So bank cannot say that okay, we will not give you 10 crore, we will give you less than that. Or bank simply cannot say we cannot give you at that 5% fixed interest rate, that interest rate change, it cannot say that. It have to give at the agreed rate of interest. So this was in news. So this was out to be discussed, and we can use this kind of case studies, or we can say we can use this kind of judgments in our mains answer writing. And we can say that a bench of chief justice like this, we can use these line, and it will definitely enrich our answer writing. So moving on with the next news. So China issues names for 15 places in Arunachal Pradesh. So China has standardized names for 15 places in Arunachal Pradesh to be used in official Chinese maps, and that was a part of border recent move by Beijing to set up terrestrial claims. And Indian ministry have said that move does not alter the fact that Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of India. So this was in the news. And Arunachal Pradesh is showing China is showing Arunachal Pradesh as the name of Zhangnan, which is basically South Tibet, because China agrees that Arunachal Pradesh is a part of China. And this issue already arose in 2017 after Dalai Lama visited India. When Dalai Lama visited India, sorry, not visited, after Tibetan spiritual visited the Arunachal Pradesh. When Dalai Lama visited Arunachal Pradesh in 2017, this move was already there. But now again, China is trying to do this. And also, this was done a few days ahead of the new border law. China is preparing a new border law in which it is kind of forcing its own sovereignty to India's sovereignty. And India in October expressed concern over the new laws. So what are the new laws, what are different aspect of it, we will be discussing it. So about the law is that it is stipulates that the sovereignty and integral territorial integrity of People's Republic of China, the state shall take measures to safeguard territorial integrity and land boundaries and guard against the combat and any act. Means basically it's kind of like bullying part of China's policy, that combat should be done to maintain the sovereign and integrity of the nation. And also there is this responsibility is given to Chinese state, that it designates various responsibility to military, to military, that is PLA, People's Liberation Army. And also it designates to state council or cabinet. Some responsibilities are given to state council, and some responsibilities are given to provincial government in managing the security and economic issue in border areas. So the military part is that the PLA will shall carry out border duties, including drills and resolute, prevent, stop and combat mission. And the state shall take measure to strengthen border defense. State will work on the border defense part. Yeah. And support economic and social development, as well as opening up border areas, and also improving public service and infrastructure in such areas, and encouragement and support of people's life and work. And also the state shall, following the principle of equality, mutual trust and friendly consultation, handle land border related affairs with neighboring countries through negotiation. So the keyword is negotiation is here. China is saying that they are ready for negotiating the land border related affairs with the and the state shall resolve it, to properly resolve disputes in the bordering areas. So what are the Indian concern? So it will kind of formalize some of China's recent action of disputed territories with both India and Bhutan. And the passing of the law coincide with stepped up Chinese activity along the long border, which have mirrored action in disputed waters in East and South China Sea also. East and South China Sea. And also, as we have discussed, India and Bhutan also. This kind of thing will kind of formalize China's present. And also, it includes PLA massing of troops in uh, forward areas along the border areas of India, and multiple transgression across the line of actual control. So, kind of transgression of line of actual control by PLA will be formalized through this. And China in recent year has been strengthening border infrastructure, including the establishment of air, rail, and road network. And it also launched a bullet train in Tibet. So China also launched a bullet train in Tibet. These are different concerns that India have with China, and it also launched a bullet train in Tibet, and which extend up to Nanjing, the border town which is close to Arunachal Pradesh. So till Arunachal Pradesh, China uh, have made a bullet train. And there is this also construction of this frontier village at along with the border with Bhutan. So see why Bhutan is also important when it comes to security of India, because the defense of Bhutan comes on the control of India. So the defense part of Bhutan comes under Indian control. And there's this pact with Bhutan that we will take control of Bhutan's defense. So if China is aggressing on Bhutan, that's a serious situation for India also. And there is this also Chinese border dispute with us. And China has about, we all know, about 22,000 and 100-kilometer land border with around 14 countries. And it has resolved the boundary dispute with 12 countries itself. And India and Bhutan are two countries with which China is yet to finalize its border dispute. So rest of the two countries which are there is India and Bhutan. And a border dispute is still not been solved between these two countries. And China and Bhutan signed a MOU, forming a three-step roadmap for this boundary negotiation. And India-China border dispute over about 3,500 kilometer, or to be precise 3,488 kilometer along the line of actual control around LSE. And China Bhutan disputes cover about 400 control 400 kilometers. So about like 3,800 kilometers of total 22,000 kilometers is still disputed area with the China. So there is definitely India's concern with that. So this was all for today's news. See you tomorrow. Thank you. Have a great day.